Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma. Welcome to episode 183 of the Cognitive Podcast. I am recording this at 6:34 p.m. on Sunday evening, May 19th, 2024. Your comments are very welcome. You can comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or in the group on Ravelry. Meanwhile, speaking of comments, Viva Scrapper, we are all waiting to know, Emily, how that cracked chicken turned out. Apparently, Sal Pal made it and loved it. Always good to get some feedback on Put a Lid on It. And then, Pearl Happy Ann, please let us see your pictures when you make your cardigan. I will continue to talk about fitting this. This is, in my case, my granny square cardigan, because I'm still working around the idea of the sleeves possibly being too long or too short. Meanwhile, the Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, the link, the first link of 2 in the show notes is at the top, right under the Warm Thanks department. And it's just a link that says all info is right here, and you click on the here. It'll take you over to the information thread on our Ravelry group. I believe, after talking to our own Carmen Trinidad, that our group knitting pattern and project will probably be about making granny squares to make the wonderful across-the-body bags that Carmen makes. She sent me a pattern from a British designer, but I've actually since found it free on yarnspirations.com, and it's also in Ravelry from Yarnspirations. Because after all, it's really connecting 4 squares. Now, there can be more to it, how you do the strap, how you line it, if you line it, etc., installing a zipper. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about all that. Jasmine Knitmore, I believe you're listening. Jasmine may be bringing a sewing machine, in case anybody got up to the part where you do some sewing with a machine on installing the lining. I'm just saying. But you can use a zipper on this, or you can just use a magnetic button. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do this in a real exalted way. You don't have to line it. Still is a perfectly good bag. But this is really 4 granny squares and a strap. And if you all are nice to me, I may bring some hardware for attaching this strap. We will all find out, but I think that's what we're doing. Meanwhile, what is on my hooks and needles, you might ask? And well, you might. We have a lot of finishing this week. First of all, I was woobling like crazy. As I say that, I had gotten 2 more kits. I got Jojo the bunny and Gertrude the llama. Yeah, I got Gertrude because I wanted to see how she did the body shape and how she was doing the baubles. And there was one other thing, but I'm darned if I can remember it. But that was enough to make it. Oh, the ears, because I wanted the ear pattern. Now, they just dropped a cow pattern, and I believe it's got similar, if not the exact same ears. And this leads me to realize, look, I don't know about Gertrude, because she's got baubles all over her body. But apart from that, and apart from the intermediate projects in general, few of which are available right now, the basic beginner and beginner plus wooble comes in one of 2 shapes. It's either sort of egg-shaped, or it's got the shape of the dragon, Fred the Dragon. And those are the 2 shapes. And if you buy her book, which is sitting on the floor behind me, Woobles, Crochet Amigurumi for Every Occasion, you will get both those body shapes in patterns in the book. They do have Fred the Dinosaur in the book. And he's a very, very popular beginner wooble. If you want the egg shape, well, frankly, if you go to Ravelry, it's just called The Penguin by Justine T as in Thomas, actually as in two. And you can get the penguin. Pierre is called, his name is Pierre in the kits, but in the Ravelry patterns, he's just called Penguin by Justine T.I. Well, actually just T. Justine, capital T, period. So there are the two body shapes. Okay, so if you want to make the beginner woobles, that's pretty much what you need. I'm not sure. I think the new one they dropped, the cow, is an intermediate. I find it odd. There seems to be more of a cylinder shape out there too, because Dumbledore from the Harry Potter group seems to be cylinder shaped, and they dropped the Powerpuff Girls about 10 days ago, and they seem to be cylinder shaped. Why am I telling you all this? Because you can hack woobles really easily. You can pay $30 for a kit, and you get access to the incredibly good videos. And those videos are going to teach you a lot of stuff about amigurumi. And that's stuff I wanted to know. I didn't know about invisible decreases. I didn't know how to do a good invisible tie-off. She's going to teach you a lot. However, I would tell you, buy one kit. If you want to keep doing this, buy the book. I hate to admit this, but I got the book and I said, oh, the dinosaur. One of my patients, I think I told you, is now doing the dinosaur, Fred. So I realized Fred's in the book. So I did Frederica because I did her in pink and pale blue. And I really like it. She's in this kind of ashes of roses pink. And the eyes, you can get 10 millimeter eyes on Amazon for a ridiculously low price. So anyway, I did Fred from the book. Then I realized I wanted to do Howard the Yeti. Well, Howard the Yeti's been sold out and hasn't come back. And then I realized if you look at Howard, he is a version of the ears on Felix the Fox. Then he's got this oval faceplate and some embroidery. If he's got a tail, I don't know about it. And then he's got these long arms that drag kind of like a gorilla arms. So yes, I found the oval faceplate on the astronaut wooble in the book. And I didn't have exactly the color blue, but I'm quite happy with how Howard came out. I have a slightly darker blue. And the arms, I just did, let me think, the arms of one of the characters, I think it's Koala, in the book. And I extended them, I think 2 rows and decreased. I just hacked it. He looks really good. He looks like he is one of the kits, except he's in my own acrylic yarn. Now, please remember as I say this, I've been crocheting for 15 years. I'm not afraid to change yarns. The Woobles yarn in the kits, they call it easy peasy yarn. It's like a polyester tubing and it's stuffed with a little bit of filling. It is, of course, t-shirt yarn. If you want that same effect where you can't drive the hook through it, you get t-shirt yarn. T-shirt yarn, well, easy peasy yarn costs about $12 a skein for, I think it's, I want to say it's like 140 yards. And t-shirt yarn costs about $10 a skein, and it's about 160 yards. So if you want to hack woobles, they're real easy to hack if you have the book. So you know what I did. I just realized I could probably hack a lot more. So I'm currently making Lola the polar bear, and also, what's his name? He's a Walter. He's just a brown bear. He's very cute. So, I'm making them. There's a cat whose name I don't remember. It's wearing a little apron with a goldfish on it. I think they're afraid you won't know it's a cat. All of these are basically Felix in different colors with different embroideries. I moved the snout. I made Felix's snout and moved it a little bit lower on the face of Lola the polar bear. I think it's not supposed to be actually. I just think she looks more like a polar bear. If something egg-shaped can look like a polar bear. And when I get to Walter, I will use Felix's snout and I will squash it a bit. I may increase a little more slowly. Felix's snout is a little more pointy. But I'm sure there's a snout, a sort of flatter, rounder snout in the book that Walter the bear is going to get. So I'm over here hacking woobles. And I'm really enjoying it. And you can see the fruits of my labors. But I did finish Howard, my first hacked wooble. And then I did Jojo the bunny from a kit. I did not like her nose. I did not really like her tail. I don't know if it's even necessary. So I did mess with her nose. I made it into a triangle because I just thought it looked wrong the way it was done. And it looks wrong to me in the pattern. It's not just me. And then I bought an extra, an add-on, this little hat that looks like a carrot top. And I just thought that was cute. So I made the hat. This is good because They do tell you with the Woobles, those add-on kits are not necessarily beginner. Let me tell you, JoJo's hat took some figuring out. I was well through it before I began to understand what Justine T was doing, and I still managed through it. What I will say, they give you so much yarn in the kit for it that I suspect Gertrude the Llama is also going to get a carrot hat. It's cute. It just looks like a squashy hat. It's supposed to look like a carrot top, I think. But anyway, you can see the finished JoJo from a kit as well. And under her, we have Fred, who's really Frederica the dinosaur. She's in my own acrylic yarn from my stash, just leftover yarn, with some button eyes that I think hers were spares from Felix and Pierre. But at any rate, wherever I got them from, because I also got them from Amazon, there is Fred the dinosaur. And I had a good time with her. She is the second basic beginner body shape. I think there's a unicorn. It's more like the head and shoulders of a unicorn. It doesn't have legs. And it's got that body shape. There's a few of them with this body shape. The dinosaur's body shape looks harder than the egg. It actually is not. It just increases and decreases a little weirdly around the middle to form the big snout on the dinosaur. So I would tell you, it just takes a little courage, if you've never done this sort of thing before, to do the dinosaur body shape or the unicorn body shape. There's a few more of them with that shape, and I can't remember them all. It just takes a little guts, but it's not hard to do. And it's not really harder than the egg shape. You just have to be a little less fearful. Why did I do all this stuff, you might ask? I wanted to do the unofficial Wednesday crochet, which was a kit I picked up in Joann Fabrics. And I am not ashamed to say I used the Woobles to complete her. In other words, I wasn't sure a lot of the way through what I was doing. And I went back and I did Felix the Fox and then returned to Wednesday. There is a link in the show notes to purchase the kit because Joann's doesn't still seem to be carrying it. Also, the pattern, I believe, is in Ravelry by Katie Lush, I think would be pronounced. I'm not sure. She's fun and she's really cool. And I'm very proud of her. I'm very pleased I finished her. I modified her collar because I think it showed too much of her neck. That wig is a real experience. You have to feel confident. And the whole thing about Wednesday is she takes confidence. She isn't hard to do, but I really did her one step at a time because I was getting kind of wound up when I worked on her. I would like you to know that the pattern is not as clear as it could be. It's certainly not as clear as a Woobles pattern, but it's really a more sophisticated pattern. So a lot of times you got to really lean into the photography and look at those pictures to make sure you're getting things the way they should look. The wig was very intimidating. It really took me 3 days. It took me 1 day to crochet it, another day to just collect it and tighten it into a wig and pin it on, and then a third day to do the sewing on it. It came out easy. You do have to realize you're meant to really stretch it, and it looks like it's not going to make it, but it does. So you can see the unofficial Wednesday crochet, the finished doll there. I'm very pleased I did her, and I am interested in moving on to doing other dolls, which is good because I know Joann's has a good book, and I've also saved it to my Amazon list. Meanwhile, I looked at the 5th CFR 23 sock yarn cowl, and I said, you know what you are? You're done. I measured a whole bunch of my cowls and just said, yeah, this is the same size as the others. I don't know why I thought it needed more rows. So you can see a picture of me wearing it. It looks unusually dark in that picture. I'm not sure why. I think I turned sort of the bluish side outward. But like all of them, it's really quite beautiful. And it's very wearable. I wear them around the house in the morning when I'm walking around in my PJs and I'm a little chilly. So that's nice. Am I going to start a 6th one? I don't think so. I think I may save my sock yarn skeins that I have for trading at CFR 10. And then there was the hybrid big old tote bag. When I started making the Cleo Fedora, which I will get to in a minute, I said, you know, I have leftover yarn from this. And then I said, yeah, and you know what I really want? I want a tote bag that matches it. And I just want a big tote bag. Something you can take to the beach and not worry about. Something you can just haul knitting and crocheting stuff in without worrying about it. Well, I sat down and said, let's really think about this. And I went through a lot of tote bag patterns. And I also ended up morphing two of them. One is the Fable Tote. The Fable Tote is by Pink Shawl Designs, I think her name is. She actually has not published it on Ravelry, but she has the Mariner Tote, which is pretty close to it. What I like about that, the Fable Tote you can get for free on the Premier Yarns website. So I have a link to it in the show notes if you want to get your copy of the pattern. But she, like I said, it's not in Ravelry yet. What I like about it is it's very heavy. It's meant to use, I believe she's holding two super bulkies, two size 6 yarns together. And I said I like that because I want this to be tough on the bottom. So I went out and I bought macrame yarn. And you're going to have to go to my notes on Ravelry to see what I got, but it's Bernat. And I got it on sale, of course. So I got two skeins. One was a darker brown called gray brown, and that's on the very bottom. And above that was a slightly lighter brown called, I think, truffle. And the truffle comes out softer. I don't know why. It's not as heavy as the gray brown. I don't know why. They're the exact same yarn, but it worked out really well because I put the hardest one on the bottom, the dark one. And then above that, I put some teal because I wanted this to look very Southwestern. And above that, I put the same rosy peach that I'm using on the Clio Fedora. And then above that, I went to a handle. Now, I didn't like the handles on the Fable Tote. They don't look comfortable. So I hunted around and I found a really nice one by Nastasia, who you should know anyway. She's a great crochet designer. She has one called the Easy Crochet Tote Bag, link in the show notes. And I love the handles because they join at the top. On the top of your shoulder, they rise from each side and you sew them together. I actually crocheted them together to make it really fit in with the rest of it and then really tied that baby off hard. This was an easy project. I did this all day yesterday after doing a little bit of advancement work on all my woobles because I wanted to. I think I was finishing all the ones that I finished yesterday. Yes. And then, put the nose on Lola the polar bear and, that sort of thing. But anyway, I'm really, really pleased with my tote bag. And it is doing exactly what I want it to do. The question is, will I line it? And what will I line it with? Because I've actually considered putting like a trash bag in it and then putting a cotton bag inside that to make it a little bit waterproofed on the inside. Or some kind of large plastic sheath or plastic bag. It is somewhat heavy. It is not uncomfortably heavy. It is big. It's a little heavier than you might think looking at it. But it is doing the job I want it to do. I am so in love with my own tote bag. In my notes in Ravelry, I think I'm calling it the Mariner Crossbody Bag by the woman who made the Fable Tote. Doesn't matter. You'll recognize it. It's pretty unique looking. I'm just deeply happy with it. It is so satisfying to do. I got the bottom from the Fable Tote because she does this very smart thing on the bottom. She does a long chain, then you crochet in a loop around the chain, and then you just keep getting wider and wider, and then you don't, and it goes straight up. It works really, really well. I highly recommend the macrame yarn for the bottom of these things, and if you want it to be hard enough to be on the ground and you don't worry about it. Meanwhile, in progress, obviously the stash toss went well this week, so we have 25 in versus 44 out. So I'm very happy about that. Meanwhile, you can see the Walter, the Woobles bear, as I was telling you, who is in progress. I just made his lovely egg-shaped body and stuck eyes on it. And there is Lola, the polar bear. She's got eyes and a snout with a nose embroidered. And then there is the Clio wide brim hat. Okay, I did not use ribbon yarn on this. I used Lily Sugar and Cream. My hat came out way wide and I'm not worried about it. What I would warn you is I had it to gauge. When she tells you to measure gauge, I had it fitting gauge in this yarn on a G hook, which is a 4.0. And it wasn't on gauge by the time I finished. So my brim is way wider than hers. However, thanks to our own dear Peachy who said, that is way cute on you, I decided to keep the wide brim because it is a good sun hat and it's adorable. The crown is too wide. And you know what I'm going to do, right? That's right. When I finish, I'm working on the very last row, which is a reverse crochet alias crab stitch. It's coming out beautiful. It makes a beautiful edge. What I want you to know, I did wire the brim. You buy 6 feet of wire. She gives you the link in those pattern notes. I bought it at Lowe's. It's working great. It's not at all hard to do the wiring. Not at all hard. The step where you put it on a table and you flatten the brim, yes, you need to do that because it does start curling up when you put the wiring in it. Okay, so you put it on the table, you flatten the brim, and then you just crochet over it. It's really easy to do. And then you start doing the reverse crab. She's got a video in the show notes that's very, very helpful. So, meanwhile, what will I do with it? Rip it all out. Don't be ridiculous. What I will do is I will put a tuck in it, a crease, a gusset, whatever you want to call it. And then I will wrap it in one of my beautiful silk scarves. And that will hide it. I've already tried it. It looks fantastic. And then I'm going to take my grommet kit and put grommets in it and my leather rope and put a rope through it and my wooden bead will tie it off. So hopefully now I'm getting down to that last row. I'm in that last row. And when I finish that, then I will do the finishing. I'm not at all worried about this. It's going to look fantastic. It already does. If I were to make it again, and there's a high chance I will, in exactly the same color to get a slightly different shape, I will go much smaller on the crown, no matter what she says about gauge. I've learned a lot. And by the way, I still have some extras of those yarns, so I'm looking at a bucket hat, but we'll get back to that later. No work on the classic Granny Square body bag. That's the one we're going to hopefully work on as a group at the retreat. The Lakeside cardigan, oh, I'm very pleased. I did a lot of seaming. So far, I have the 2 longest strips in the back. They're each 10 blocks long. Those are done and sewed together. And then the right side is 8 more blocks, 4x2, and that is sewn on. The left side sewn together, but I still have to sew it on. But it is going and beautifully, and every day I just do 1 more block. I'm not even sure how many I have left to go. I think it's going to be 68 blocks, and I think I'm somewhere around 50. I'm not worried about it because those extra squares, I have some other plans, which you will see. Here's the great thing. You can't have too many granny squares if you're a crocheter. The options are enormous. You can make a tote bag, you can make a crossbody bag, you can make a bucket hat, you can make a sweater. They're just great. Granny squares are one of these amazingly useful things. As long as your colors roughly coordinate well enough, you're going to get something. So I'm really happy about this. I did work on Lydia's pink socks. I've got about 2 inches to go on the last of the socks. I'm on the foot, obviously. Vestuary didn't touch, but I'm getting to a place where I just want to start finishing things up. But Gemma, why are you woobling? Because it's really fun to hack. It's really fun to experiment with, and they're really quick projects. No Disney Blonde, so let's get to the strategy. Well, I've been talking a long time, so let me tell you, the strategy is short and sweet, but you need to hear it. The weather is beautiful. For heaven's sake, get outside. Now, going outside is a part of emotional management in dialectical behavioral therapy, the brand I practice. But let me tell you more about it because, you know, I'm a boomer, and I'm the end of the boomers. Now they're calling us, the last 10 years of the boomers, they're calling Generation Jones, 55 to 65, which I think, 1955, 1965. Oh, that's pretty much our ages at this point. But at any rate, Generation Jones, we were raised on this. President Kennedy did a big thing on health and exercise in the schools, and we were the beneficiaries. And I realized as I treat so many teenagers that they don't do this. They actually feel that video games are okay. I've literally had late teens, early 20s people say to me, oh no, I don't go outside. I don't do that kind of thing. Actually, you can't say that. I mean, I know that's going to be a temptation with video and with everything on computers like homework and schoolwork and everything. You can't do that. You can't say, I don't go outside. And the 2 biggest reasons, number 1, you need sunlight. Humans manufacture vitamin D. When you eat it, it is not nearly as effective. We have a huge vitamin D shortage in America. Everybody's got a shortage, all these patients. You know why? Yeah, you can already guess it. The quarantine for a year made it worse. People got out of the habit of being outdoors. And The other thing you need out there is the fresh air, because the air is circulating. So you're not breathing dust, you're not breathing pollutants. Now you know most dust is actually flaked human skin. Yeah, that stuff clogs you up. It's not good. So you do have to go outside. Competing with this is the fact that a lot of people now have allergies because we live in a polluted environment, although we are in constant denial of this. Nonetheless, you have to go outside. You have to have air that is simply air, fresh air. Can't be recirculated. By extension of all this, you can tell where I'm going to go next. If you live in a smoggy location, you've got to get out of it every now and then. Not only do you have to go outside, you have to go to fresh air. You have to go to open skies and sunlight. You can't just stay in New York City day after day or downtown LA. You actually have to do better than that, because again, you have to stop breathing in stuff that's human waste. You have to breathe in stuff from plants. You have to take in air that is recirculating, that hasn't been run through the filtration system of a 30-story building. You have to do this. Now, when you go into fresh air and outside, there are some really good correlations, such as when you go outside, most people do exercise, and they don't think of it like I went out and I did a run. They're not thinking of that, although that's what I did all my life. What they're thinking of is, well, I just went walking, I walked over to my friend's house or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you know what? That's called exercise. That when we go out into the air and the light, we do feel motivated to walk, and we do tend to walk. Humans are walkers. We're not actually runners, and we're not hardcore weightlifters. We're really designed to do a lot of walking. We're kind of migratory. So, yeah, if you go outside, you are more likely to exercise. Now, being a Generation Joneser, I've got an exercise bike. I think all of my people do. We also tend to have treadmills or walking pads, or whatever you want to call them this week. Yes, and you know what? That's great. It is still not as good as biking outdoors. It's just not good. You don't have variation in the landscape. You don't have variation in how hard you have to work. Now, I'm biking 35 minutes a day. Look, anything you do for 35 minutes a day, you're going to benefit, as my legs will tell you, because they're looking very good. So that's a great thing, but you are better off doing it outdoors. What did I just say? Take your bike outside, your exercise bike, put it outside in the air. It is going to be better for you. So I got interrupted by my weekly phone call with a very dear friend. And that's okay, because I think I've made my point pretty clearly that when you're going outside, it isn't just about getting some fresh air, as we used to say. It's more about you actually gain nutritional and exercise advantage. You clear your lungs. You do a lot of things that your body needs to maintain itself, and you are more likely to move in a way that promotes a healthy body. You're more likely to exercise in a more solid way. If you can run on a treadmill versus run outside, you should be outside. If you can bike on a stationary bike, or you're biking outside, you should bike outside. Those things are really great. Don't get me wrong. I'm biking myself. In fact, right now, I'm at 420 miles since November. I think I was saying some lesser number, like 100 or 200. I don't know why. I looked at my odometer. No, it's been 420 miles since late November. I feel really good about that, I might add. And I'm usually doing now about 4 miles a day. It feels wonderful. Since I do it 7 days a week, I really do. I've really gotten in the habit. It's a little bit much at 35 minutes a day. It's a lot of time commitment, but I cannot deny how much better I feel. So that's all I shoot, in case you were wondering. Okay, in the fluffy books, no real changes there, but I have to tell you, Bridgerton is back on Netflix. I think this is the first half, they're saying, of season 3. I binge watched it yesterday while I worked on my beautiful tote bag, and it was just terrific. It really was what you wanted it to be, and I was just ashamed how addicted I am to that show that I actually sat through 4 hours of it, but I wanted that tote bag pretty badly, let me tell you. It's good. It's beautifully done. It's very satisfying in many ways, and they're emphasizing change in the characters. It's pleasing, and I enjoyed it. And, it comes with all the stuff I worry about, like, should we rewrite history to pretend that severe racism and slavery were not going on in the Regency in Britain? What does it mean if people of color are now integrated into the cast and they're noted as people of color? They're not pretending that they have full integration. They're saying that Black people specifically were allowed to join the nobility because of Queen Charlotte having African ancestors. And they do talk quite a bit, particularly in the spin-off about Queen Charlotte, about racism. But yet there is an underpinning of, if we're doing this, most of these fortunes were coming from sugar plantations in the West Indies and Jamaica. And that means we are co-opting the Black nobility into this too, that they are supporting the slavery. They wouldn't be wealthy. And even if that's not where their wealth comes from, they're associating with Regency, nobility, and aristocracy, and that is where their wealth comes from. It's a very painful thing. And at the same time, you say, but if you just overlook that, I'm never comfortable with rewriting history, particularly when you're doing it to obscure a very important evil of the time, like slavery. However, I still watch it, and it is this breath of fresh air, because you're like, wow. So what happens if in your cast, important characters are Black and they're not all the criminals, like they used to be in my day on any kind of crime movie? Look, it's integrated. There's a Black guy. Why is he always the criminal? Oh, well, it's integrated. Yeah, and so it's kind of beautiful just to see it as everyday reality. And that gives me a lot of hope that it is attractive. And of course, the actors are all well cast, but they're also very handsome people. And it's just beautiful people in beautiful clothes, doing beautiful dances, having a beautiful time, not worrying too much about money except one subplot. So I mean, on the one hand, there's that kind of guilt and shame, like, are we doing this? Is this a good thing to do about changing history this way, or rewriting it and covering up how horrible the slavery was at that time? And on the other hand, you could picture this world where we could all just be equals, that people aren't hung up on skin color, although they do that a lot in the Queen Charlotte miniseries. And they need to, and it's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they're having the discussion at least. But it is kind of amazing when you watch Bridgerton and realize that's what an integrated world would look like. Okay, they're all too pretty. But beyond that, it's really very beautiful. So anyway, it's back and I binge watched it. Something I really like. Well, remember my SodaStream, the Terra model? I was unhappy because it has plastic bottles. SodaStream keeps telling you how they're keeping plastic out of the landfill because now you can use a SodaStream. Except all the SodaStreams except one are using plastic bottles. The one that uses glass is way more expensive. And it looks like they're phasing out the carbonation cylinders for that one. They made this easier to insert smaller carbonation cylinder for the model I have. They made it very cheap to buy 3 of them with your original pack and keep replacing them. Yeah. And all their newer SodaStreams are plastic bottle using, and carbonation makes plastic deteriorate. So they have expiration dates on their plastic bottles, so you have to keep going back to SodaStream to buy more plastic bottles. Grant you, it's like once every 6 months for a new bottle, but still, I thought we were trying to keep plastic out of the landfills. Not to mention swallowing microplastics when you drink from that bottle. So I went to Amazon. Whatever you don't like about Amazon, they do have things you need. And there it was, Mate of Steel bottle. And it fits the Terra. And I read the reviews. People kept saying, well, it overflows. Well, yeah, you're overfilling it. Well, yeah, there's a fill line, but it's steel. You can't see inside the bottle. It's kind of hard to gauge. So you got to think a little bit. But yes, they said, well, it's not compatible because it will overflow. No, it's very compatible. If you buy this, there is a link in the show notes. And if you buy this, make sure it fits your model. It fits 3 of the models. I think the newest 3 models does not fit the model that takes glass bottles, but really, why would you worry about that? So what did we do? Well, we bought glass bottles to drink our soda, our carbonated stuff from. And I found a good bottle that is 32 ounces. Actually, no, it's not. Yes, it is 32 ounces. And it's 32 ounces plus a little. That is less than a liter, which is slightly over 33 ounces. So this is important because I'm also using mason jars that are quart jars, and they are 32 ounces. So what am I doing in a glass mason jar with a special steel strainer? I put my tea leaves, I pour water over it, I let it sit all day in the sun just to let it steep. At night, I take the strainer out and drain it, the liquid in the bottle, and then dispose of the tea leaves. And meanwhile, I put a plastic lid, which you can also get on Amazon, that fits a mason jar. I put a plastic lid on the mason jar, the glass mason jar. I put it in the fridge. The next morning it's cold. I pour it into the Mate of Steel bottle, which fits into the soda stream. And I carbonate it and I listen. Now, it is not enough to fill the liter Mate of Steel. That's the whole point. But I listen and I hear it fizz. And I wait till the fizz noise stops, and then I take it off. We've never had an overflow. So if you have a soda stream and you want to stop using plastic bottles, Mate of Steel, just the Mate bottle Mate of Steel, it's on Amazon. It was, I think, about $25. I'm so happy I can't even tell you. We got all the plastic out of that system. We're using glass to make the tea, glass to chill the tea, a steel bottle to carbonate it, and then I pour it into my glass bottle, which has a silicone shell on the outside, so if I drop it, it doesn't break. I am so happy with this. I can barely tell you. Put a lid on it, nothing really new. So we're down to the blather, and there isn't much, fortunately. I think the most important thing is I did get summoned for jury duty, and so I wrote them and said, I used to work in a prison, and you're sending me to a criminal court. They said, yeah. And they postponed it to August. Used to be at the end of this month. And then a friend talked to me about it and said, you should really ask them to change your court to the one down in Santa Clarita because it's a civil court. And they don't get a lot of cases, number one. And number two, you wouldn't feel endangered. So you could serve if you wanted to. And I think I should serve. I think it's a reasonable duty, a civic duty to be on a jury. Sure, who wants a psychologist on a jury? But at least I'll get the chance and I won't feel like my life is at risk. So I put in the request yesterday, so they'll probably postpone me again. So probably in November, I will be doing jury duty, but I hope they will hear my plea to move me down there because my job is down there. So I said, if you release us early as they do when they don't use you that day, I could go right back to work and see patients. So I'm hoping they will do that. Meanwhile, everything else, huge mending pile of stuff, weight loss. I'm down 21 pounds after, I think I'm at 8 or 9 weeks. My glucose is going up because I'm taking a pill that makes it go up, but that's only for a few more weeks. Otherwise, though, I've been in ketosis forever. I can always taste it in my mouth. It's a little bit bitter. But everything else is good. The animals are all fine. My husband is weed whacking to his heart's content, so we've got the rosemary and the Russian sage and the dianthus back, a few of them. I have to weed in the beds right against the house to see if agastanthus made it. Spearmint's doing hugely great, but we do need some weeding. As usual, under community resources, I have links to the books, the patterns, the skills, the things I buy to support my knitting and crocheting. On the calendar, on Thursday, May 30th at noon, the Hands on Knitting Center's Thursday lunch chat on Zoom features me because we're doing Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to record it at 11 a.m. and hopefully there'll be people in the store who want to participate because I have a patient at noon. But we're going to do 11 to noon with that. So that should be pretty exciting. Meanwhile, you can find the information on all the groups that are knitting and crocheting in the Santa Clarita Valley. I should say crocheting and knitting because there's more of that. And of course, the Santa Clarita Valley Free Craft Exchange stuff. You can find all these people on Facebook. I do have Memorial Day off now that I don't work on Mondays. This is beautiful. I also have a 4-day weekend coming up on July 4th and hopefully on Labor Day as well, because my birthday is 2 days after Labor Day. Actually, it should be a 5-day weekend. Meanwhile, CFR 10 will be at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia on September 28th, 2024. And again, there's a link there too for information. And Romuald is looking like December 21st to at least December 29th. So Minerva gets the last word. There's a picture of her in the dark closet, which means all you can see is one shining eye staring out at us. Minerva would like you to savor the mystery. That's what that picture is about. The mysterious cat in the dark, the black cat who fades in. I stared into the void and the void looked back. Yeah, I think that's from Heinlein, one of his novels. But then the void meowed and wanted to be fed. But Minerva lives in a very special little world where she's very loved. I'm her other cat, and my boys are her humans. And we've been enjoying this week how she has her own rule book for this world and how it should run. So if one of them comes near me, she has to get in my lap and make sure that they know that I belong to her. But she'll meow the whole time talking to them, and she'll purr because she's in my lap. So Minerva's running life pretty much on her own rule book. And how she made these rules is kind of a mystery to me, sure. But Minerva would like you to know that life is full of wonderful mysteries. And you can either be bashed along through life, resenting things and being frightened, or you can actually enjoy the mysteries of the world and savor the beauty and the mystery. So that is Minerva's last word. Savor the mystery of the everyday. In the meantime, everybody, remember we are a community. When we take care of the community, we are taking care of ourselves. When we take care of ourselves, we're taking care of the community. So don't forget to get all those shots and good things. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.